We are just a few days away from Notre Dame's home opener against Toledo on September 11th. The Fighting Irish got a win on the road against Florida State 41-38 in overtime. We're going to touch on that game, also going to preview this Toledo home opener. Before we dive into it, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Make sure you're subscribed to Blue and Gold YouTube channel here if you're not yet, and go to blueandgold.com for all of your Notre Dame football and recruiting coverage. Now, I'm Mike Singer, joined by Tyler Horka. And again, before we dive into the Notre Dame-Toledo game, this was your first game. The Florida State game was your first contest covering Fighting Irish football. Tell me about the experience, going down to Tallahassee. What was that whole travel experience like? And then Monday at noon, you got a Brian Kelly press conference 12 hours after the game hit triple zeros.
Yeah, it was just nice to be on a college campus again that had that buzz. And I mean, two programs like Florida State and Notre Dame in the first week of the season, the crowd was going to be crazy. The crowd was going to be full. It just felt nice walking into that stadium knowing we were probably going to see a pretty cool atmosphere. And as soon as I got in there, I was like, man, these students have already showed up. It was probably 90 minutes before the game. And, the student section was crazy crammed packed. And I was like, if this game stays close, this atmosphere is going to play a factor. And honestly, when Florida State started coming back, I was like, man, this crowd factor could end up being the difference, especially in an overtime game. But yeah, the Florida State faithful, they were there. They showed out. Me and Patrick, we went down to this place called College Town, which is right outside Doak Campbell Stadium the night before the game. So that was the day that we arrived in Tallahassee. And it was already a party 24 hours before the game. So I knew that Sunday was going to be a crazy atmosphere. That lived up to the billing. The game probably exceeded expectations for what people thought it was going to be. And overall, it was just a really cool, fun way to kick off the college football season on the Notre Dame beat.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of positives to take away from the game, plenty of negatives as well, with Notre Dame eking out that one after being up 18 points. But let's start with the positives. If you're Brian Kelly, what are you most excited about with your football team following that victory?
It's the way Jack Cohn passed the football for sure. And he put up 366 passing yards, which is a career high and a high for the Notre Dame program in a season opener without really throwing to the wide receivers like we thought, this Notre Dame offense could, we thought Jack Cohn was really going to spread the ball around to the wide receivers. You look at his stat line, he only threw to three of them. Kevin Austin, Braden Lenzy, of course, Joe Wilkins as well, who caught a touchdown like Kevin Austin did. So if he really starts throwing the ball to, say, Avery Davis, maybe Lorenzo Styles gets in there. Deion Colsey's a guy that could come in there as a true freshman and make some catches. So that was just a start for the Notre Dame passing offense. Still threw for 366 yards. Michael Mayer looked like a beast. I think the passing offense is going to be really good. I also think the running offense is going to come up from the 65 yards on 30-plus carries that Notre Dame had in that first game. Kyron Williams is not going to be stonewalled like he was. So I think it's really encouraging for Brian Kelly that the offense fared as well as it did without really much of a running game.
And then on the other side of the coin, Tyler, I mean, what are you not pleased with? And note that Notre Dame needs to improve when it hosts Toledo to kind of, get things ready. I mean, Toledo shouldn't be that difficult of a game. We'll touch on that. And then there's Purdue. Again, I don't know how much better Purdue is even than Toledo, if they are at all. And then you got that big one against Wisconsin, September 25th. So what does Notre Dame kind of need to figure out, improve on these next couple of games?
I think you definitely want to see the defense play more assignment sound football. Look, in that fourth quarter against Florida State, every time one of those Florida State running backs got the ball, and they used quite a few of them, it was really a running back guy by committee. I know Corbin got most of those carries, but they used quite a few guys. Whoever it was, they weren't touched by the Notre Dame line of scrimmage for 3 or 4 yards, sometimes 5 yards down the field. Florida State really kind of, took it to the Notre Dame rushing defense in that fourth quarter. That's the only reason that Florida State erased that 18-point lead. So you want to see these Notre Dame defensive players look comfortable in Marcus Freeman's system, and I think that really had a lot to do with it. Look, this was the first time they had to go out against another opponent and play in Marcus Freeman's kind of free and fast style of defense. So that might take some time. And I think playing an opponent from the MAC like Toledo is a good way to kind of say, hey, let's bounce back from that Florida State game. Let's, correct some of the things that We didn't do them right against Toledo, because that'll really set up this Notre Dame team to play a little better than they did defensively against the likes of, like you said, Wisconsin and Cincinnati, because those games are coming. Those games are on the horizon, and those are going to be tough games to win in the trenches.
So Notre Dame again beating Florida State 41-38, and then on the other side, Toledo beats Norfolk State 49-10. I don't know much about Norfolk State. I know they beat Michigan State a few years ago in the NCAA tournament, a 15-2, and I know they're
Yeah.
from the state of Virginia. I don't know much about Norfolk State, but for whatever reason, the line for the Toledo Notre Dame game moved from the Irish being a 19.5 point favorite to 16.5. I'm like, what is the reasoning for that? Why does, I mean, Vegas is typically pretty smart when it comes to these things. So I'm kind of like, why is the line moved like this? What's your take on it, Tyler?
Well, I think it probably had to do more with what Notre Dame did in week one than what Toledo did. Obviously, 49-10 is super impressive against anybody you're playing. So
Eh,
maybe, yeah, I mean, 49-10 is 49-10.
yeah.
But still, I think it was the fact that, Notre Dame had an 18-point lead against Florida State, saw it erased, and, very easily could have lost that game in overtime, just, as easily as it ended up winning on the foot of Jonathan Doerr. So I think, that 3-point victory kind of scared some Notre Dame believers, if they were believers before the season, off. It didn't really scare me off. I don't think the line should be moving as much as it is, just based on, one game in which Notre Dame barely escaped on the road, like I said at the beginning, in a very raucous environment. A win's a win. And I think Florida State is actually on the rise. Mike Norvell has proven that he's a pretty good coach. He did it at Memphis. I think he's going to turn this Florida State team around, maybe not this year, but in the immediate future. So, yeah, I think it had more so to do with what Notre Dame didn't do as opposed to what Toledo did do in that first week of the season. But still, that's a lot of movement just based on a couple of reactions there.
Yeah, it was funny when the Notre Dame Florida State line was, we're kind of leading up to the game. It was like 8.5, then it moved down to 8, and then it got down to 7. And I remember seeing Notre Dame fans say that's free money, and I was like, you know what? it's never free money. Vegas is typically pretty smart. So let's kind of move into prediction time with the Toledo game. Give me your score prediction and why. I know that's something you're probably going to write about and talk about a lot this week, but hey, go ahead and give it to us a few days in advance. What's your prediction for Notre Dame facing what should be a pretty good Toledo team? I mean, they might be the best team in the MAC.
Yeah, I think Toledo's definitely going to give, Ball State, Western Michigan, those types of teams a run in the MAC this season. I don't think they're going to give Notre Dame much of a run on Saturday, just based off of what Notre Dame did. I think Notre Dame's going to want out and come and, show the country, say, hey, we're a top 10 team for a reason. We're trying to make the college football playoff in 3 of the last 4 years. This is what we're supposed to do to MAC teams. That being said, I thought Toledo's quarterbacks, they use a kind of a quarterback by committee system, 2 quarterbacks playing. They've got one guy in Carter Bradley who can really throw the ball. They've got another guy in Daquan Finn who can really run the ball. They both did, what they were supposed to do against Norfolk State in week 1. I think this Notre Dame defense is going to rebound. I think the offense is going to be, basically what we saw against Florida State, just with an improved running game. Obviously, I think that, Notre Dame's probably going to be able to do whatever it wants offensively, throw the ball, run the ball. I've got Notre Dame 38-13. Obviously, that's a cover. I picked Notre Dame to cover in week 1. Like we said, that didn't happen. So I think Notre Dame rebounds, gets a victory, covers the spread, and, starts the season 2-0 in pretty strong fashion.
I agree. I like Notre Dame to cover. I've got 42-9. That was my prediction that we put in our magazine, actually. So that was before even the Florida State game. I'm sticking with it. I always stick with my magazine predictions. Yeah, I agree that Notre Dame defense is going to be salty. I think they're going to run the ball better. I mean, I'm sticking with 42-9. Maybe I'd give Toledo an extra touchdown, but hey, again, stick with 42-9.
So is that 3 field goals or a touchdown and a mixed extra point?
It's whatever. It's whatever, man. I like 3 field goals. I think 3 field goals. I think Toledo can drive the ball a little bit, but I like Notre Dame to clamp down in the red zone. Well, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked what you saw, hit that thumbs up. Leave your comment with your score prediction for this contest for the Fighting Irish and what you thought about Notre Dame's win over Florida State.